Hi, it's Bettina Hardy here, and I'm with Rebecca Lim again. This is episode 5 of our discussion about Australia's immigration policy, the Manus story 2013 to 2020. So in our last conversation, Rebecca, you were telling us about the amazing work that you were doing in terms of community development, community engagement on Manus, and some of the relationships that you developed there. It'd be great if you could just tell us a little bit more about some of the community work that you were doing there.
Yeah, thanks, Bettina, for having me. So in terms of some of the advocacy, I had come to know Bishop Rokus Tatami, who was the president of the Catholic Bishops' Conference, and he's also the bishop in the region that takes on Manus province as well. Keviang Manus, and Bishop was spending a couple of days in Manus. Can't remember why. Must be some religious event or something. So I invited him to have dinner with us, given that we've got such an excellent cook in Raj. And I invited Aziz, who's now in Switzerland, Benam, who's now in Paris. There was Raj, and then there's myself and Father Clement.
So these are all some of the men who were seeking asylum?
Yes, all of them except Raj have been resettled in a third country. So the purpose of inviting Bishop for dinner really was for him to meet some of the men who have been outspoken and who can speak English reasonably well, to explain, their plight and the situation for everyone, kind of speaking on behalf of everyone. And the Bishop was clearly moved when he heard, a lot of the things that I've already spoken about. I mean, he just couldn't believe. He said, Papua New Guineans are not like this. This is not how we treat people.
What did he mean?
He meant what has been happening to the men Australia has been sending, the lack of medical care, the hopelessness, not knowing what's going to happen to them, and even the manner of which they were put on the plane and told lies about Papua New Guinean people. He was horrified. He was mortified. He says, really? This happened? And everyone just went, yes, Bishop, this is what happened. And we're not just saying one or two people. Everyone who was on that plane said that. And so he obviously was quite moved. And that was good. I needed him to I had met Bishop on a number of occasions before. I used every opportunity to meet as many people as possible to kind of raise the issues. I mean, people hear about the men on Manus, but nobody really knows what that's about. So Bishop was kind enough to accept our invitation. He enjoyed the food anyway. So, I guess that was, and then, the Bishop would have, after that, had some reflection. And he was going to Rome a couple of weeks after our meeting. And so he would have had quiet words in Rome about what's happening. I did a briefing note for him. So, yeah.
Do we know?
Oh, look, I think we've raised awareness of what's happening. And, of course, with the work that Father Giorgio Licini has been doing in Port Moresby from the Catholic Bishops' Conference, the Vatican is certainly aware of what Australia has been doing. Whatever happens from there, I guess, we kind of don't get to know about it. And that's okay. For me, my role really is to kind of, feed the information to the people who need to know.
Yes.
And then we leave I've also met the nuncio a number of times. Nuncio is a ambassador Catholic person.
Right.
So each region, I guess, Australia has a nuncio as well. So they're responsible. They report to the Vatican. So Australia has a nuncio. Yeah. And so the Papua New Guinea nuncio is a bishop from India, Bishop Matthew Kurian, who's very aware of what's happening and very sorry that the men have suffered so much.
Tell me about, in terms of the community development work and the engagement, and I guess in what was happening for the men themselves. Have any of the men settled in terms of families or on Manus?
Yeah, so I guess when you send 1,500 men to an island community and then expect everything to be okay and no relationships start and no babies born, it's a bit naive. So obviously, life goes on kind of thing. There's no rape. I mean, in terms of the babies that we're talking about. So as far as we know, maybe just over 40 registered births. So we're talking about babies born to Manus women, mostly Manus women, and refugee background fathers. Father Clement is concerned about the future of these children. He calls them the fifth wave of refugees. The fourth wave would be these men, and then there were, other waves of refugees prior to this 2013 population. So Father Clement's view is that this is the fifth wave of refugees. These children will have a lot of difficulty in the future because, again, they can't inherit land because their fathers are not Papua New Guineans. It's a patriarchal society. Yes. And I would think that, one family has settled, one gentleman from a Rohingya background, he settled in Manus with his wife and two children, and he's happy. He's stateless. So for him, he's happy to kind of live there, and hopefully he'll get Papua New Guinean citizenship. There are many other relationships that are not intact, and I don't think there was an expectation from both sides, from the women as well as the men. I think it was kind of a relationship with maybe no expectations of future, and who knows what the contraceptive situation is on Manus. I think many were not planned, accidental babies, which is very unfortunate.
How would the women have been, what was the response to the women in having the babies?
Some women are mainly happy to have the children.
But in terms of their families or the community?
They've been accepted. Yeah. I think it's more about, I think Father Clement was talking more about the inheritance rights to land, because land is everything. In Papua New Guinea, you need to own land to be able to function, especially in a smaller community. If you haven't got land, you're, squatting on someone else's land, aren't you?
Yes.
Kind of thing. So, hopefully the children won't be disadvantaged in terms of education. All this costs money, right? It's quite a poor community. So I know that some fathers are very responsible and do provide financial aid to the children and to the mothers of the children. Some are in America, so they do send money back, which is good. That's your responsibility. It doesn't kind of end on the one evening. And then I guess there are others who maybe that's not kind of the situation. Yeah. And really not laying blame on anyone. It's consensual. It's kind of, life goes on, right?
Absolutely. But I guess, as you say, the question now is around the future, because of the type of society that it is.
That's right. So does Australia have any role to play in this in terms of looking after the children? Who knows?
Tell us a little bit more about the post-detention economy.
Yeah, I kind of coined that term, the post-detention economy. It's like, how is the Manus community going to recover when the men leave, which is at the point where we're at now, 2020, right? The men were progressively transferred to Port Moresby in the last 12 to 18 months. And so I guess not everyone in Manus benefited, it would be fair to say, according to the media reports. I don't want to get involved in the politics of Papua New Guinea, but I could see the prices of fish and other food in the markets, the wet market and the dry market, kind of increasing. Of course, you've got a fly-in, fly-out population. Just like the mining towns, everything becomes more expensive, right?
This was during the detention period.
That's right. Yes. That's right. And so now, so during the detention period, a large fish that would normally be 40 kina was 80 kina, 90 kina, which is beyond the reach of an average Manus family. But 5 refugees could put 20 kina together and buy a big fish and cut it up and eat, right? So there's also a lot of resentment, I think, seeing the men. Refugees don't have to be poor. Refugees can be rich, poor, educated, illiterate, come from the village. I had a professor from Tehran University when I was helping in Darwin Detention Center, and he was a political refugee as well, So what does the post-detention economy look like? It's 2020 now. I suppose they would have to rebuild, because they were so much reliant on the money that Australia was spending that not everyone benefited. I tried my best when I was there. I engaged with some women's groups and got them to make lap laps. Lap laps are really sarongs. We call it sarongs, really, in Singapore. Australians call it sarongs. In Papua New Guinea, it's lap laps, or in Manus, it's lap laps. So I got the women to kind of make some lap laps, and I brought some back with me, so that created a small little bit of employment. Manus Soap, there's a factory there, if you like, a very small scale, family operated, and they make soap out of different herbs. Got some Manus Soap there. I tried my best to kind of talk to the community about what will you do when the refugees leave, because you need an economy. I have a friend called Ben Pokorop. He harvests rice, red rice, which is the healthiest above brown rice. So you've got brown rice, that's very healthy, and this was a technology from Japan. So Ben is from Long Island, and he got some seed money and started this small plantation. So I hope that that's something that can be, I guess, marketed for the local people. I brought a kilo of red rice with me to Port Moresby, and when I was staying at the motel there, which is a bit of a health resort, apparently I didn't know until I stayed there. No alcohol, oh my gosh. No wine, oh dear. But I kind of brought that sample for them, because, I think this is the kind of small-scale farming projects that people can kind of start doing for themselves, because, it's all very well, we're all profiting from the misery of others. We were there to help care for people, most of us. But what will the economy look like now?
It's interesting that you've taken such an interest in helping to develop, as you say, the post-detention economy. Like, why?
I made some very good friends, and I guess I just wanted them to kind of think about, the men will go. At some stage, they will go. What will you do?
Yeah.
If you're going to, you can't rely on them all the time, right? So these small scale projects, and I just wanted, and there's so much expertise, and the women are very good, they can sew, and there's so much prospects there to kind of do something.
But it sounds like they've really touched you. There's a very personal desire to maybe try to repair some of the relationship because of what Australia's policies have done to them.
Yeah, fancy me taking on this role. Hi, when it's not even my policy, I'm not the Australian government, I'm not being paid by the Australian government. Yeah. But so I'm kind of taking, but it's about friendships as well. They were very kind to me when I was there, and, very hospitable. And as I said, every Sunday go to Mass, like a good Catholic girl. But, it wasn't just about going to Mass, right? It was about engaging with the community after that, which really, we went, they took me fishing. I met the girls at the college, because this particular church at Papitala, it's a village outside, maybe 40 minutes by road from Loringau. And it's a girls' college, and the boys also have a college. So it's like a boarding school. And so we were looking at donating money to build a well for the girls, because they had to walk downstream to get water. And if it's late at night or in the evening, or they're menstruating, the girls, the high school girls, it would be very difficult. So we were even looking at how we could kind of help that. And I know that if we had to kind of go and build some wells, and our refugees come from populations where they are quite experienced in this farming, and how to build wells and how to get the water. So if that had gone ahead, but in the end, I think we maybe donated some money for a motor, for an engine to kind of get the water up. But we also donated, Raj had a lot of English language books, dictionaries we donated to the college. So there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on, reciprocal.
And how do you think it was for the men, like Raj, for example, to be involved in cooking for people, donating books? Like, how do you think?
Yeah, for them it's all second nature. Sri also went to help dig the well, and a lot of them, it's all second nature for them, because it's all, they have friends in the community. Not everyone was beaten up. It's not like that.
Yeah.
But it's still, at the end of the day, not their home.
No,
it's still somewhere that they are temporary foreigners, if you like, and still waiting for an outcome. Absolutely. But in the meantime, trying to do their best. Yeah, so they kind of, everyone knows, most of the refugees and the men kind of know people from Ward 1 to Ward 7.
Yeah.
We've walked up from Ward 2 to Ward 6,
What is Ward?
Ward, W-A-R-D. Yeah. So it's like a suburb.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a district, if you like. So there's Ward 1, Ward 2, Ward 3, Ward 4, Ward 5, Ward 6,
Okay.
And that's sort of through town, I suppose. That's Yeah, so we have Kupuru and Forest Lake and Inala in Brisbane. So that's the Ward 1, Ward 2. And in the evening, the men would go for walks or ride their bicycles if we donated bicycles. Yeah.
I guess the thing that strikes me is that for one of the things that you've actually helped to create here is an opportunity for the men to be able to reciprocate, to be able to give back, which would be so important for their emotional well-being, given that they're in this position of being totally powerless otherwise. So that's really empowering and really important.
Okay, if you put it that way, I agree. But I can say that the men, they made a lot of friendships as well. And they have no grief towards the Manus people. I mean, I think you've heard, everyone would have heard Beiruz and Aziz and other people talking in the public forum. They bear no ill will towards the Manus people at all. I mean, okay, initially there's some grief and some violence, that kind of thing, but mainly the rascals rather than, the Manus population as a whole. Yes. But as people engage more and more, there's a lot of friendships that went around. The kids love the guys, papu all the time. And and I said, the men in our refugee population are used to families, big families, albeit, or even small families, but they're very family-oriented men, right?
Yes.
So this is what they've been missing for a long time. And, they call the older women mama, so they don't never call by first name at all. So it's like mama, which is, auntie, if you like.
Yes.
Yeah, so everyone's a mama to them, kind of thing. Just like the children call them papu. It's the same thing, uncle. Yes. Yeah.
And I guess, one of the things that you're really highlighting is the need for connection, and that these are men and the people in the community, just wanting that connection, and how important it is for us and for our well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. Shame on the Australian government for not even kind of looking at this. They're wanting people to be there for a period of time and then just kind of leaving people to their own, whatever they have to do, they do themselves. And service providers will only do so much because they're funded. But there was no community engagement. Well, for a start, I mean, the Manus people have told me they were not consulted. All they knew was the first flight arrived. And, we've got another wave of refugees, yeah? Okay, what do we do with them now? Yeah. Okay, they're locked away at Lone Broom. Oh, the courts found that it was unconstitutional. The gates are going to be open. Oh, we've got people coming to town now. Good grief. Right. Yes. So what do we do now? And where are they from? And we've heard horrible things about them. Yes. I mean, there was some effort by the service providers, even when the men were in Lone Broom, to have orientation to the villagers. So they used to take them to engage, with the locals at a very superficial level, learn a little bit of Tok Pigeon, this is village life and all that. Yeah, so there was some effort, of course. But I think the whole broader thing, when the gates, no one expected, I think, the court to find it was unconstitutional, and that really was the right time for Australia to take people back to Australia. Yes. That was the time of the PNG government, I think, under a different administration, not the current Prime Minister, who really should have said, well, the court says it's unconstitutional detention. Australia, take your people back. Unfortunately, it was just dragged on, and this is where we are.
It's astounding that didn't occur. So, how many men are left on Manus now?
Under 5.
And so the rest would be
in Port Moresby.
That's what I was thinking. So I'm thinking that's probably a good place for us to finish this conversation, and then next time we can talk about Port Moresby, because I think everyone would be really interested to know what that's like.
Thanks very much, Fatina. Till the next time.